Inshallah, today is 21st of Ramadan, so we've entered the last 10 days, and only Allah knows if tonight is the night of Qadr, whether it is or not. The last 10 days of Ramadan are mentioned in the Quran as days of great blessings and enormous barakah. And we know that the heavens and the earth are never as close to one another as the last 10 days of Ramadan. It is a time, count your life with the number of Ramadans that Allah gives to you. Each Ramadan that passes is a deduction of one. And then you have left whatever number Allah has decreed in your lifetime, whatever it is. But even if you imagine that Allah has written in your life 100 Ramadans, even if it's 100 Ramadans, each Ramadan that passes is an opportunity. And so remember, dhikrullah, the remembrance of Allah, should always be in the last 10 days of Ramadan a preoccupation, a constant preoccupation. But the fact that you are in Tarawe'eh, and inshallah we'll do the dhikr, it means that, inshallah, that you're already aware of this. I want to make this short Nasiha, as the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ holds, to dedicate this Nasiha to what I see as a very significant and grave event in our lifetime, and that is the threat that exists to the life of three very important scholars. I talked about them in Khutbat al-Jum'ah, but in the rest of your Tarawe'eh prayers and in the dhikr, remember them. Ask Allah to give them patience and strength, and to give patience and strength to their family. The three scholars that I'm talking about are Salman al-Odah, Awad al-Qarni, and al-Omari. These represented, for whatever it's worth, the moderate side of Salafi Wahhabi Islam. I have been watching a lot of videos by Salman al-Odah and Awad al-Qarni, and not Awad is Salat. Awad al-Qarni, his brother-in-law, and al-Omari, and consistently they represented, again, whether you agree with them or not, it doesn't matter. What they represented was a side of Islam that did not sell out the essential and existential causes of the Muslim Ummah. They insisted on Saudi standing by the Palestinians. They insisted on the relationship between Muslims and al-Quds and al-Masjid al-Aqsa. They thought that the war in Yemen was an unjust war, and that the genocide of Muslims, inflicting a genocide upon other Muslims, is unconscionable and unthinkable. They did not want a war between the Sunnah and Shia, and thought that that would be disastrous and a huge calamity. They thought that the first issue that the Ummah confronted is the existential threat that Israel posed, especially right-wing Israelis posed, to liberty and freedom in the Muslim world. The fact that the neocons and right-wing Israelis, the Christian right, that firmly believe that Muslims should never have the right of self-determination. And either they spoke openly about this, or they spoke through sort of implications but the greatest, the biggest threat that is posed to Muslims in our day and age is that after the Arab Spring, nations like Saudi and the Emirates and Egypt unified to demand what Orientalists have been calling for ages quietist Islam. An Islam that is odorless, tasteless, spineless, an Islam without ethics, without morality, without notions of justice, without notions of freedom, without even notions of fundamental human dignity. An Islam that basically says, as long as you do your ibadah, as long as you pray and you fast, and pay zakah where the government allows you to pay zakah, not even to your choice of recipient, then that's good enough. And Awad al-Qarni and Salman's al-Odah and al-Omari's sin is that they saw that as grave and as a grave altering of the very nature of the Islamic faith, which started out as a theology of national liberation. I mean, the very first principle of Islam, when the followers of the Prophet ﷺ went to Abyssinia, and the emperor of Abyssinia told them, "What is your religion about?" And they said, "Our religion transforms us from worshipping other human beings to worshipping God alone. تنقلنا من عبادة العباد لعبادة الله." That we no longer submit to another human being. The entire revolution against Quraysh that Muhammad ﷺ led was a revolution against a corrupt, iniquitous aristocracy. And the very first message was a message that said whether you are rich or poor, you are equal. Whether you are Persian or Arab, you are equal. Whether you are black or white, you are equal. And the only distinction is the distinction of whether you live within a paradigm of belief or you live within a paradigm of non-belief, which for that time was completely revolutionary, and it made everything stand on its head. For people that had lived for centuries within paradigms of elitism and supremacy and a notion of inherent superiority of a caste over another, that was completely a revolutionary message. Without that revolutionary message, Islam ceases to be Islam. There is no more Islam. Islam then just becomes like any feel-good, self-serving theology of egoism, a theology that basically caters to the individual ego so that the individual ego can consume without refrain and can indulge without limits. That's not Islam. And so in your prayer and in your dhikr, there have been so many Muslims, and if I could sit here and speak to you for hours about how many Muslims have been put to death in the past 5 years alone. But Allahu A'lam, but I feel it in my bones. If scholars of that magnitude are put to death, if Salman al-Odah and Awad al-Qarni and al-Omari are executed, we would earn Allah's wrath for I don't know how many decades to come. I feel it in my bones. All blessings will abandon that entire region. And that's not something that I want to see happen. We have already angered God enough. We have already shed enough blood. We have already the amount of, and one last thing. If there is anything that will save the lives of these scholars, sadly, it won't be the demonstrations being held in Saudi or in Egypt or in Jordan, or it will be and only be the reaction of the West, because that's all that Saudi Arabia cares about. If with a single phone call, if Trump calls up MBS and tells them, there's going to be too much backlash, that's the world we live in. So you live in a privileged situation. I had a nightmare last night where I dreamt that I was being arrested and that I was watching my sons, and I knew that my sons were going to be executed. And when Grace woke me up, I realized that that but for Allah's blessings, any of us could have been in their shoes. All of us are the sons and daughters of immigrants. For a simple change of fate, a very slight change of fate, and we could have all been easily the ones who are facing the death sentence. So pray for them, and if you are able to do anything, such as contact a congressman, work with a human rights organization, demonstrate in front of the Saudi embassy or Saudi consulate, that's our obligation, that's our duty. Because it is our obligation to save lives, especially when those lives are honest, brave Muslim scholars. Okay. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.